Hello and welcome to episode 64 of Apex Instant Tips, brought to you every Friday at 12:05 Eastern Time. I'm Anton, and as the sole host now of Apex Instant Tips, I have been working diligently on this week's tip. But fear not, it is not just me this week to bore you. I have a special guest to help bore you along with me. So with no further ado, let me introduce Hayden Hudson.
Not rid of me quite so easily. It's good to be back, Anton.
It's great to have you as a guest this week, Hayden. I really appreciated your tip last week. I think there's some forecast options related to doing quality assurance and testing and so forth. But really the biggest thing is coming up with the standards to put into whatever your standards tracking are and writing the queries to figure them out. So I really thought that was a great tip last week. Look forward to more standards to come.
Absolutely. And to cue up today's episode, one standard that we discussed this week that I find very provocative, and I hope we can discuss more of, is that we could have a standard of all LOVs should be subscribed to a master LOV.
Yeah, it looks like some people may have guessed that you were the guest this week, Hayden. But yeah, so I think that is something that I subscribe to. Have you gotten around to writing the query?
So what does that mean? Hopefully we have some kind of demo that would exhibit the virtues of that standard.
Yeah, let's do it. So I've got an application that we can talk about. I'm going to go ahead and kick off my timer so we can perhaps actually finish in 5 minutes. So here we go. So you can see here, I have a list of values. It's just a static list of values. But perhaps we'd want to add to this list of values to add another color. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we would do. So we'd click here, we'd bring it up. You can see that this is a shared component color, which already that's a great standard, right? Whenever possible, use shared list of values. Let's take a look at edit that. So of course, I could just edit this list of values and put it in here. But
not so fast.
What if I have 10 applications within my workspace and they all need to know about color, right? Most applications need a color. So I have multiple applications. What's the right way to do it?
Well, as was alluded to, I can see that this particular subordinate application subscribes to a LOV in a master application.
That's right, and that's the key here is whenever you have multiple applications within your workspace and they work in concert, or I suppose they don't even have to work in concert. If they're going to have something that's shared about them, if you can create a master application, and in your shared components, you get things like lists of values, color, and you can see that this is actually used by 3 different applications. And so if I want to add another color, what's your favorite color, Hayden?
Let's go with purple.
Purple it is. So if I add this here, I can apply that. And I should have clicked the stay on return to page here, but I can now actually publish that to all of the applications that use it. So not just the application we were looking at, but all those applications have it. So now if I come back to my report, we should have purple.
Brilliant.
As well.
And in this particular instance, it means that you would never actually have to deploy your master application because you're publishing the changes to the subordinate applications.
That's right, and often that's the case, but I'm going to give a couple reasons why you might want to deploy it. One is it's a whole lot easier to get through QA, the master application, because there's very little functionality in there. These kinds of changes are really small. So it might be that you deploy the master application into production and then publish in production to update your list of values.
Sure.
That way you don't have to go through a whole promotion for your actual applications. That's one reason. Even that might be a little bit tricky to get past some DevOps procedures. But the other reason is, if you remember, we talked about using an error handler, and at the application level, adding an error handler. So if you get a database error.
Yes, and just to interject here, viewers will benefit from watching episode 22 of our series, in which Neelesh discusses and published an error handler that we will be discussing now.
Right. So take a look. So we added purple in here. So this is just an example of, I could choose purple, but then what's going to happen? I get this error message. And that's because our error handler picked up an error that came from the database. And there's a constraint here. And the constraint has just this but I'm supposed to go put a better message in here. And all of this comes from that code that you were just talking about. So what we could do, though, instead of having that error, so that error ended up in our shared components. If we go to the application that we were looking at, it just created this in shared components, text messages. And what I'm supposed to do is go fix this text message, right?
Yep.
But if I've done it in a shared application using this, I can actually say, instead of doing the application ID of the individual app I'm in, I can change that to the master application ID. So I'll do this. Now, there were a couple of places that we used app ID. I've simply replaced app ID with G app ID. So you can see here, it used to say V app ID. I changed it to G app ID. And here, same thing. So just in those few places, but let's go ahead and compile this now using our master application ID. So what will happen now is if that error has been encountered by any of the other applications and already fixed, I'll go ahead and apply it now. That error would show up. It would pull it from our master application. So if I go back to our master application, we'll see that in the master application, it's already taken care of. But I could, if it weren't taken care of, I could deploy the master application. Again, a very easy thing to do. Deploying your master application, there's almost no functionality, and it would make it into production really quickly. So another great reason to have a master application all the way into your production environment.
I love this. I think this is brilliant.
And right on the 5-minute mark.
Right. And Neelesh, if you're paying attention, this is your heads up that you should add Anton as a collaborator to your repo so that you can add the changes that were discussed in this episode.
That's right. I will do that in Neelesh's repo. I'm going to go ahead and do exactly that. I'll put this this G app ID in. So what if I export the application? Well, so I'll say, I think what the question here is, what happens if you export the application and move it along in your production environment? A tip that I think we may have covered, but maybe we haven't, maybe we should, is that ideally you're going to keep your application IDs the same as you move through environments. So your master application ID won't change.
Right. Yeah. So if you're hard coding 89808 in your package, it's because you have the expectation that that application ID is going to be represented in all of your environments.
Right. And if you can't do that, if you have to have a different application ID, there are certainly other ways to come up with what this number is, right? You could store it in a table, you could select from a table, you could do something like that. But there's definitely an opportunity there to make it more generic. But for most of us working in corporations using Apex, not shipping applications, we're going to be able to have a specific ID. If you're shipping an application and it's being installed at 100 different clients and you don't know what the application IDs are, then you need another approach. Agreed.
Yeah, but that is a pretty rare scenario, I think.
It is, yes. Yeah. Looks like we've got a thumbs up, as it were. That's good.
But this tip is a no-brainer for any workspace that has a suite of applications.
Absolutely. And so the question is, how do I relate an app with a master app? You don't really. You simply say, this is going to be my master app. And you do all of your shared components in the master app. And then in all of your other ones, I think I'm still showing my screen. So let me just show. In all of your other applications, the ones that are not the master app. So we've got all of these. You go into when you're building your other applications in your shared components, whenever you subscribe, you always subscribe to the master. So there are a lot of places that you see this. You see it in lists of values. You see it in templates. You see it in a lot of places. So you always want to subscribe from the master.
And there's an implicit tip here, which is naming convention. So you have named your master app. You've hard-coded the name master in the name of the application. And you've also hard-coded the name master in the name of the LOD.
Right. And I think that's a good point. Just from I do that. I always, I name the LOD. So it's easier to find, especially when
so
I have
Anton,
a lot of content in this workspace.
But Anton, I think this is unconscionable. We've gone over 5 minutes and we haven't told people they're welcome to check out.
Oh my gosh, yes,
Yeah.
I'm totally behind. So yeah, if you, of course, yeah, we should have said check out 3.5 minutes ago. Do all the things, like, subscribe, all that stuff if you're not sticking around.
Yeah.
But Hayden, I am gonna answer any other questions that folks might have. We may have already gotten through them all, but if not, I'm willing to stick around. You too, I assume.
Absolutely, yeah. No, and I think we can stop sharing your screen just to remove the temptation to continue.
Right.
Presenting.
Yeah. So let's see. Do we have hi in the definition? Share components. You can use conditional. It's a good practice to set up the conditional in the master or not. In the definition, share components. You can use conditional.
I'm not sure what the condition might be.
I think it might be like you can. You can conditionally. You can conditionally show content right here, like this condition type. I think that's it. I think if you can make that condition reasonable for across all your applications, absolutely you can do that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So maybe it's a different list by subordinate application, perhaps, or
perhaps, right. So whatever you might be able to do to do that, you can still reference bind variables. You can still do all of those things. I think, you said, Hayden, do I stand by this, that they should all be subscribed? I think it's a good standard, but one of the nice things about the Apex Standards app and all the others is you can say, okay, this one, don't apply that standard to.
Exactly. Yeah. You're welcome to make as many exceptions as you please.
Yeah. Should we create a master application per need? One for colors, one for, I don't think so. One master application for all your apps. And and then you only have one to promote. The master application shouldn't have functionality that really
you don't log into the master app.
Yeah. And in fact, this is something I wish I had said earlier. I actually removed the ability to log into a master application. I delete the login page and the authentication scheme. I say return false. You can't log into it. Nobody gets to log into the master application, period.
I love it. And that makes QA a real cinch.
Yeah, right. You can't log into it. You can't do anything with it. So I completely remove it. The other thing that I think I know we covered it in episode 22, but when you're creating your other applications, if you're going to make use of this error handler and you want it to automatically create your messages if they've never been seen before, there at the application security level, you do have to say, allow this application to make changes to this application and other applications.
Yes. That's actually pretty important.
Yeah, right. Otherwise, you'll get another error. It's not fun. What if we don't want to deploy the master app? Okay, so if you don't want to deploy the master app, then you still get all the benefits of subscribing. Subscribe and publish to lists of values, templates, and other things. But what don't you get, Hayden?
The consolidation of the text messages.
Yeah, the text messages, right. If you're going to consolidate your text messages into a single location, then you do need to promote that location into production. Those don't get pushed out. That's not a copy and subscribe model. That's they're in this application.
And just to advertise, the advantage of using text messages over, say, like a database table or something like that is text messages are extremely handy for translation purposes.
Easy translation, right? Yeah. So I think for that reason alone, I would recommend promoting your master application. And in that scenario, it is possible you might decide, I'm going to have one application that's for text messages and one application for all the other things that get subscribed. You might consider that. I can tell you other reasons why I would still promote the master application, but I think the master application is really helpful for environments where you have large deployments, lots of applications. They all subscribe to that. You can change it in one place, publish it out, and all the other applications get the benefits of it.
Agreed.
So Hayden, I think we're well into our time limits here. This week, we don't have a wisdom of the week and we don't have an off-topic tip, but we did want to just recognize the current world situation, the conflict in Ukraine. 30 years ago, I was a member of the United States Air Force. I entered the Air Force at the time of conflict. I was commissioned just before the first Gulf War. And I really did join the Air Force because I wanted to have an impact on the ability to have peace. And I know many people will say the military isn't about peace. My goal in joining the Air Force was about peace. The first Gulf War, in my mind, was about liberating Kuwait. That said, I find these days it sometimes difficult to know what do I do, where can I have an impact, and I'm not sure I can have an impact. But we wanted to open that up. Hayden, I know you have some thoughts on this as well.
Absolutely. I'm very moved by the recognition that many of my colleagues, now that I work at Oracle, are in the Ukraine. So
you said you have people on your team.
I have people on my team with whom I have relationships at this point who live in Ukraine. So this makes this crisis another degree of real to me.
Yeah. So in lieu of any other segments, we'd like to put up a list of a couple of relief organizations. If you're looking for a way to make a difference, here are two places that you could donate. As I said, it's difficult to know what to do in a situation like this, but these are organizations that are reaching out to the Ukrainian people to try and help and provide support. And if there's anything else that you think of, we'd be happy to entertain those in any kind of comments or later from the show. But our hearts go out to everyone affected.
Yeah, it's so hard to know what to do, but this is something.
It is. And with that, we wish everyone a great weekend and our best to all.
Yes.
Thanks.
Take care, everybody.